Good morning, Salotine Edlarote. What is going on? Good morning, good morning. Hello, Edlarote. Say hi, say what's up. No go dinner with Ozzy. Throw it in the comments. Good morning once again. Treaty 6 territory, Saskatoon, Sinadu, Gabi. Last and final day at the survivors gathering, Ile-a-Crosse residential school survivors gathering, known by the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. So, don't think there's going to be a panel, a bahalti daha. I'm not sure that the questions see just show me. I don't want to overthink it this thing. And so that he done with this morning. Whoever is 9 o'clock on Bonivia, it might be a little Indian time, Métis time to there, politically correct. But over the last 2 days, John Denasana in there by Tony goes in northwest Saskatchewan, Lalash, Turner Ocean, then his in la. I don't know Turner Lake. Oh yeah. Turner Lake was in the Dano, Coach Ho, Buffalo Narrows, Jadesh, Chew, Buffalo River, Denny Nation, Ile-a-la-Crosse, Theo, and then Pachinak. Canoe Lakes on Hunt other but Torlew Northwest Saskatchewan is in Denenade, you're down our school line Danisy. And one of the interesting things that Ile-a-Crosse is the second oldest community in Saskatchewan. Henila, the school Tahui honestly good down hard missionaries it's an old down the no so no then I saw sigan the then I hold through then I didn't and over the last 2 days then as I'm gonna make the clips Gabinta Zakunes Jare a Bagalas now and then I'm gonna post all the then I need it I see a post as clear but then it all near Danu Dano de da Haru Yaltu and I think all Danisi ku bet on near bets in your two condi to deal nine deal just for an education so Banari Yalat kontu see Banani there Danu Bagani Tau dan Hari Tade Ade Daruni the Lielo right so see harin childhood di don't see nunt I no araliande because school but ari din kole it's one thing a year brain dinner kujan benar na though then a hell maybe not kebesh chanata then not days on this morning yeah not kebesh chanata not day then right here this morning so but it's only going to go till noon at noon's in again pretty much right away. Thoughts on Walila 9 to 11 recap. Denedina Delon the Sun Denedini time. Asne the Sana Deo who Asne there's a lot of emotions, eh? Last couple of days, then pick up these energies. I see not daisy and Bahal Tehin Teen Latasan, right? Nahin Dene Babakorant Atasan. Nestana. So then ba uno daily lubenenitzen. Ku city the there if you're used to the north day it's totally different day. One of the things China Lily had dini their day you can't just go next door, eh? Go somebody then it's in day the duo on the la nage, right? So kont wala dunenant dun zinike Saskatoon TCU place Métis Nation of Saskatchewan Masi Boanestano Deneyati Denahal Deneyati Dut au and then Haldeasti had Nasil Tien Saril Kurla. So Sinesa Salodina Kimberly Kelly Kimberly Tlanta Kimberly Bagun Liao Henny. Why who was it? There was somebody here. Sebi Bie Henny Tanondi. Or that's my niece. Benasnila, but somebody mentioned you for sure. Cummings, ene, Denasla, Torinka Selotine, not Degi. Boy, oh boy. Manchero. That's why I moved away, huh? Torlion. Yeah, yeah, that's it, yeah. Ayla, yeah. Anti, yeah. I think it was Bahalias Tini. Zinegota. But hunt other than a yeah, soon than a John. But Nahi than a Delondi. I guess over the next couple of days, Toronto ends at Dela. Soon you cannot there, Arsenal. You know, then I'm gonna try to get a Mil John, Free John, Sahalias Tia. She used to. Well, get her to back to watching me again. Hey. Toronto is in the De La San. Métis Nation dit Elders Committee cannot consider acknowledge Alyeha school. Ku that's one of the big things, right? Gani Parliament dealing the bagayan to government, yeah, liberal government, you cannot dare to not acknowledge them. Kudanos Denisi is same thing. First Nations residential school Astana and Ku Nohalot Inola, right? Half status, half Métis, but Salot in a Daitlion. Same thing who Delu. And then you know, Asun Babanunt Dun Zinege Outsen Utha Don and Dedaran Tala. Like Olya Don and Dedaran time. Ile-a-Crosse boarding school closure. Ile-a-la-Crosse. Piyutien. So, go darn time da garuchion. Did you? Do do do. 1976. So 1906, so it's in 1976, so it's in your Sequoia 9 from all over, you know, Zinike, Denise George Bahalya Tinisi ku Betty Quig on Natsino, desa, right? Away coins on a bunch of coin that dion the laku. Then I tia across the lake, right? So Tantu hil chun is ku plane ye the causing has liao you dan residents dying lenny si ku dan all across not dani si but queens not delon dan is on. Doing a little different, eh? So yeah, se divided the larant on as on. Kusakuta bag o nini si o anse dueda intasan. Kuta bananas and a dale hasi. But coinzen could eat it had done on the sign, but the coedizen a hell not deal every day, every night. Eh? So yeah, they konu banani there it makes you think, what the hell, you know? Not the rest ours in but the whole Benerit Dideza just encouraged and that the honni bits easy hulniha. And one of the things yeah totine no ti honni dol nide nezulala. Eita no ni baganai deo ant I Torlink and Nihultsage ya not deo Northwest Saskatchewan, not Daisy in all the communities. Nabaho ade Nebaho on at the that then a hell not dede those ni at the see. Esti benari diha. Ku daha nedere denegode onti si kone tare. Yedenere niala. Kuti boy dida zondala na hintene esti benike chat tu asa del tio lisi tu honal tare hulni hababa benike chade the kundi the hoidio ondala mental health base. So in a safe space aliare okay dene tinadio on tu si base adalana mental health support tu kuntia. Ai asnedi di batoril au onla asned balia tire ai nezondala antu si hudelu healing base kudaha ink aze daganot data de ja doge no hanenesi ceremony sweat lodge to te shunzu kutelgale diganot data de even smudging every day konti sia ink aze ganot data the nezon ku la mas kunti na tilde di bet ora aundala yet he bet ora au prayer whether Catholic to non-Catholic that una babet ora asi a bet a bet orange are esti bet ats a daliha because one of the things barest in it don't you see benar nastro and then a orange are but then it zie the Yahoo das antiondala, right? I'm sure then at Sambo and then it's an on the see ho are as a deal that you understand, Bagaya Tiduina or dealer. We live it. Died down every day. Even though then a school line daily see it in some of those same things I benasnie nisegade al tire kusenenet in telas tueda hard and udarat in right? So all across the boardness they had one objective. But Duhun zink John Saska Tunozi Darit you no hayati Darit au te denanada dlohu dena sadest you know, on the daliha no honesh nari like a 9 day na date sir then as and now told you Tanis and Beyazu, Métis people, everybody. Then Dennis needed a person, everybody, Dene. So, ko on the sun. Doing zinike. So, with that, I'm just going to take a moment here. We're going to get started, John. Camera, yal yare. We're running a little behind here already. So, the schedule for this morning is so breakfast is going on right now. I do believe some people are still coming in. And then there's going to be a closing prayer. Although it is the last day, closing prayer. And then we're going to have a panel this morning. And then any session recap, mapping next steps, lunch to go, and then travel back home. So we're going to be out of here by about 12 o'clock here this morning. So, salutine, I school 9 days that are not able to make it. Maybe you can direct YouTube ga ano seo no it's in TV, smart TV no it's in it okay no kwan. YouTube ga ano sare dene yati podcast ga na yordano ion da sa. Don't do that iganats a daisy anytime. That okay live stream on Aster. See you can get it on YouTube. I know the phone's in out and you want to text somebody, you don't want to get off both. So TV ke YouTube ke on in a lade volume by senatarin dare de couch ke lihti thare hilsile coffee to who got being done on la coffee hal You know, bit I think yari it's in it's in perfect day. Sa ali hajan. Honek eth John Saskatoon kaya honek ethnic seal. So after this afternoon, Nash Jare, the next 2 days, gabi, so there I'm going to be traveling to Cold Lake, Alberta. Your MLTC is hosting a youth conference. Just going to pull it up here. Let me see here. MLTC. Youth Conference. Meadow Lake Tribal Council. Oh, here we go. Let's see if we can get it. Alrighty, Youth Empowerment Tuliela Conference. I am worth it. Junior LaRose, Dr. Pita Apinga, Ian Lavalle, March 29 to the 31st. 29, 30, 31.
Day 3 of the Ile-a-La-Crosse Survivors Gathering. And it's not over yet. We have another.
So I'm going to hand it over here to the MC. They're up there now. So, Masi Cho, doing Zinegeder.
It's wonderful to hear some of the comments yesterday and last night. People are absolutely loving reconnecting with family and friends. So this is the first step here that happened. Now people are asking me, what next, Maureen? I don't know, but that's a really good question. So after everything gets started, we're going to be having a legacy, a future for our children. But the questions that you people have, please don't be afraid to ask them, because I've been approached. But I mean, I guess I can be your voice. Two questions that I've been hearing a lot of is, what's next, Maureen? We need to get together again. This is the first step of reconnecting. The second question that everybody's asking is, where's this list? Am I on the list? That is a big question. So these are, but feel free to ask them, and people are listening. We have the ears right now. So whatever question you have, please don't be afraid to ask. As day 3 approaches, Dwayne and I are getting into the groove of things. Now it's over. Wow. So we've been starting off. Opening prayer and land acknowledgement is what we need to be starting off with. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne.
All right, Marci, ni tuan istamina kitams kahit nao kinanas kumt nao gapits pio kahkio taga pito tikanos. Welcome everyone, and it's been a wonderful 3 days now. This is our third day. It's nice, really nice to see people connecting, enjoying themselves, having fun, laughing, and really taking advantage of this, like we said at the beginning, this historic moment, the first time bringing the Ile-a-Crosse residential school survivors into one room. And this has been really good, and I hope this is the beginning of our healing journey as a people and as survivors of Ile-a-Crosse residential school. So with that, before we get going any further, I'm going to call on our elder to come and do an opening prayer for us to start things off in a good way. So I'm going to call on Tom Chuck McCallum to come and do our opening prayer.
Agnanas komt now, doet iemand. Ik ook kimio asigoma. Je wapen te go. Monan stono go to school ga get toch die anders. As so good. Ik te you go. But that's what happens, they tell me. And before I do an opening prayer, I'd like to share a story with you about this Métis man who was looking for work. And the place that he wanted to work, the guy that hired was really racist. He didn't want to hire Métis. So he tried to find a way to prevent this man from getting work. So he told him, he said, if you can count to 9 without numbers, he said, I'll hire you. So that Métis guy drew a tree, a spruce tree, and another one, and another one. He drew 3 of them. He said, what does that mean? He said, tree and tree and tree is 9, he said. But he still don't want to hire him, eh? So he had to think of something else. He said, okay, if you do this, you're going to get the job. You got to count to 9 and 9 without using numbers. So he took his pencil and he scribbled on those trees, those 3 trees. And the guy asked him, what's that? He said, dirty tree, dirty tree, dirty tree equals 99. He said, he still didn't want to hire him. He said, one more question. If you get that, you'll get the job too. You count to 100 without using numbers. Tapui. And beside the tree, he had a little turd he drew behind each tree. And the guy asked him, what's that? He said, dirty tree and a third, dirty tree and a third, dirty tree and a third equals 100, he said. So he got the job. So that's how innovative we are as Métis. Somebody said here, a Métis is never stuck. Mokatsa. Today we take our vehicles to the garage and we pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get it repaired. These trappers that were in a bush, if something broke down, they fixed it, and they got it going. Because we didn't have that, what they call the Indian Act, to assist us and give us that, Pas de l'argent, nothing. So we had to make everything work for the children. And today I still see that. I've talked to people, they've gone to university, they got master's degrees, some have doctorate degrees. So we have come along a long way. There's still a contingent of our people, that pain that they carry in their heart is so strong that they can't see beyond that pain. But you are here today, and you have been here for the last couple of days. You know that there's hope, and you are the hope for those people that are still hurting. The way that you carry yourself. Because we can say all kinds of beautiful words and everything, they will soon be forgotten. The children will forget that. But how you carry yourself and how you treat your children, they will never forget that. So you are the role models for the future. When they ask, what's next? You keep doing what you're doing. This young man here, that Spuddy, he come and told me, he said, I have gathered names of quite a few people. He said, we're going to keep in contact and we're going to work together to make a difference for those ones that are still struggling. We have our own struggles, but you have gone beyond that already. Coming from many, many different places to come and bring your beautiful spirit so that it can help others. People have the gift. From far away, you could see a light coming out of the city. Iwasitik, that's your spirits coming together, creating that light, making that connection to Creator. Kagesimigo siyakayas. What the gifts that we have been given by the Creator. And each one of you has a very powerful gift. And that's why you are here today. So thank you. And I'm very honored to be able to share a little bit here. I also used to crawl around on the streets of Ile-a-la-Crosse, being drunk. And I was searching for something. And people told me to go to AA, go to the center. And I did. I sobered up. Magagawingi paksin, and I drank again. Until such time as I found out the gifts that were given to us by the Creator. That's when change started to happen for me. I was finding out who I was. And that trail of destruction that I had left behind, including my family, my beautiful daughters, where is she? Right there, Desiree. Yeah. That's my daughter there. She came all the way from La-Loche to come here. And she's a teacher today. She teaches culture in La-Loche. Teaches the kids, teaches the women how to make ribbon dresses. And she comes to the Sundance every year. I run a Sundance ceremony close to Calgary. And that's what helped me. And I will continue to do that till I can't move anymore. Then somebody else will come behind me and do that. And I really would love to see some of you people come over there who are open to that. The people that are there are the people on very powerful healing journey. And that's part of the stories, creation story in Mamano Isaki Tako Manatoka Gipitaka Mixita. That's all part of that in a more profound sense. We understand it. So with that, I'm going to humbly ask each and every one of you to put your hearts and your minds together and acknowledge Creator, God, Mantu, however you know that to be, and ask for all those good things, because when we ask, we will receive. That's what we were told in. Hanoch tawinan, amin apirogan nas komp na nuskagis gagumagamiya. Setesip muhtata mako towards taskami. Koap maogu taktawasum sak. Kaishaga pouchaganasut. Mutihi, mimam tonishagan, gakiogi go igunan hikatapunako. Iguan gagit niganichik. Tatugats pagani tawagitsik. We start a wit up magoakik. We start iwich yuguakik. We see to skaguakik. Egunan gimam si to tawakonia. Mama, Bapa, Nemosu, Nochkum, no Chapa Nagakio. We stow out Ayawago, take Wixkinoch Tahiguaki. Mam Tonichagon, Egwandi, heat and Iso Paigo, Egonan, Piagon, Piaki Gwe, Mantuga Gis, Yanskunamagoya, Yawanma. Nanascomp now, Sagi hit now. Achkamimok, Kaiwe got spaghetti. Stehegi wek takunina o, mohats ke piagona o, kakio yegunegan giwit yoguakik. Iguanos kagi sagago go kawiki iguti. Tamiop mohti hu ikut, existe taganuim gawi. Tagohtigo, kiguaka. Kakio igwe tamiopa iguti. Tamiosti kakio igwe. Igano spatski go to pagam skaguin. Existe kagi se moto tawako mantuno. Hey, Nanaskoman.
You want to light our sage for us? So we're smoking while we have our session.
Oh,
Thank you very much for that, Tom Chuck McCallum. It was very powerful. And not to leave our Dene brothers and sisters behind, I had asked Tony LeMaig to say, but I don't think she's here yet. Oh, she's here. Do you want the microphone there, Tony? Okay, I'll take the microphone to Tony LeMaig. She's going to say a prayer. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we've asked her to say a prayer and to sing a song for us. While she's getting ready, I just want to share with you guys what I've observed the last 3 days. I mean, I've observed a lot from up here. But the families on Friday, the families that came together. It was so beautiful to see from up here because some family members live in Alberta or different parts of like La Ronge, whatever. It was so cool to see the families coming together at the tables. And then yesterday morning, it was so cool to see that they reconnected with their immediate family. They felt the power and the strength. Then they reached out to their friends that they had went to the boarding school with. They went over. And even just this morning, I witnessed here standing up here. I had to do a lot of that this weekend, just so you know, when somebody would say, oh, I think I recognize that one because time had passed, right? I would take their hand, and I saw that this morning, and that's powerful. That's part of healing. And it's so beautiful. I seen the one young lady walking by here, holding the hand of another lady, taking her to her mom or her aunt, and they were hugging. That is the most beautiful. I've seen so much beautiful, powerful stuff up here this weekend. It's just amazing. Today, we are like a big, happy family. You know, and I was even talking, and I don't want to put anybody on a spot because they hate that when I do that, but there's these two young men at the front here, the Derbyshire boys. Wah, wah. These are our members. These are our family from Ile-a-Crosse. These are boys from Beaver River. You know, and then they're here, and it makes us feel happy. These are our family. And it's just amazing. I just have goosebumps because it's so beautiful and powerful what I've experienced this weekend. And a lot of you have shared that with me. Okay, I'm going to shut up now and let Tony LeMaig take over. Okay.
She'd like if you guys could stand, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be singing Thank You song in my Dena language. Marcy Cho se Dariye. Marcy Cho se Dariye. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Marcy Cho no Jesus. Marcy Cho no Jesus. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Marcy Cho, ye Darienne song. Marcy Cho, ye Darienne song. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. I thank you all for coming here. Let's praise the Lord, for He is good. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Masisi Dari, thank you.
That was very, very beautiful. Thank you so much, Tony. Tony Lemay from La Loche. Now we're going to get on with our program. We have our legacy, a future for our children. Before we're going to call up the panel here to come make their way up here. And while they're doing that, after everything is done here, please don't just run off because we're going to end up with about 300 bag lunches here. I'll be eating sandwiches for the next 3 months. So we have some bag lunches for you guys to go home when you go home. And I want to, a very important thing here because the tone has been set. It's a sad time because we're departing again. We've been together for 3 days. We're going our own ways. Please don't forget to reach out. When you go home and you're feeling sad and lonely, there's mental health supports in place. Please don't suffer alone anymore. The Ile-a-Crosse Friendship Center has 4 of us that are on virtual calls. You can call us anytime. And then we've made a whole bunch of contacts here this weekend. Please reach out. Okay, I'm gonna get...
Okay, so as we call the panel up, we'd like to get the panel up here. Jordan Burnoff, Kirian Morin, Willis Janvier, and Candice Evans. As they make their way up here, I just want to call on the president of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, Glenn McCallum, who's here with us this morning for a little bit, and he just wants to make a few remarks. So let's give him a nice warm welcome. President Glenn McCallum.
Good morning, everyone. Mira, I went 3 days with Tagay Kaya. Kasi ay mutamak in regards to where we are, survivors as te. Because the families ay mutamak. Tamego kamatua iguin sa nahigoyak residential school. And most importantly, our elders, it was that song that was just played. Thank you, Miyutawan. And the elders that have been doing prayers and being supportive, and the workers that have been supportive, and the organizers, thank you very much. My wife and I are going to be flying out today, Ottawa. The work continues, not just having conferences, but the work continues in regards to engagements with the federal government. Our brothers and sisters, Kaitiama, Natasgodi Inuit, and First Nation. Our national president has been planning a get-together with the Inuit. And on the 28th, they planned a hockey game, a friendly game between the Inuit and the Métis in Ottawa. And that's where I'm going, plus side meetings at the same time. But when we went to lobby for our legislation, when we talked to the opposition, the Liberal Party, the NDP, the senators, they now know who we are as Métis as far as the working partnership that we have with the federal government, our MOU framework, core government's agreement, legislation to follow, hopefully soon. Mark Miller, the minister responsible for that file, is going to be the goalie for the Inuit. And Brendan will be our goalie for the Métis. But I'll have a conversation with Miller, and if things are not working as fast, I'm going to take a few slap shots at his head. I'm just kidding. But anyway, the work continues. You know, rest assured that we, as your leaders, are continuing to engage with the province and the federal government, institutions, industry. And so when you gather here to be able to share your stories and share our stories in regards to our moms and dad, what has happened, let's keep it alive. Let's continue going. Akami mutak, suki mutak, Kiama taas ko piah tagi ko ipaik. Usto ka taksin no tanti ka no ti taksin niya. Mam tini mata ni ka ginagatuya ko. Kuya mo ikatsta pa ta maganas ta mama wapsik. Tas kun mama mi maganas to mama. Ko mi cheta sinagatuya ko. Every one of us. Kas ko gipiwihti no. Kagiwan ha ko. Kita sinim na wak. Para kami mo tag. Tagwi mo ta kaya matas ko, iwatagi mo ya. Si guys mama wapia, tayo mihito ya kasya, tasitos kato ya kasya. Kami mo ta. So on behalf of your government, Métis Nation, thank you and have a safe drive home. Kakiyo kagwi mo taks ni Kigwa. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, President Glenn McCallum. Now we'll call on our young panel, Jordan Burnoff, Carrie Ann Morin, Willis Janvier, and Candace Evans. And what they're going to be talking about is a little bit of intergenerational trauma. You know, we're the survivors are in this room, but you all have kids, you have grandkids, and we want to understand, you know, from the intergenerational survivors themselves, how they've been affected, you know, over the decades. So we're missing one. Where's Jordan? Oh. So let's give these youth a nice warm welcome. They're going to share their stories with us.
Testing.
We're going to have questions here, and then we're going to get Michelle and on stage, and we can talk about next step legacy and answer those questions. Okay? All right. Good morning. Tansa.
Danza. Testing.
One second. Okay, I can see most people. So today we're gonna have a conversation just about some of the ways that, you know, we've grown up in Ile-a-Crosse, La Loche, Buffalo Narrows, and growing up with all of you, and growing up with our parents, our grandparents, and where the school fit into that, and how it played into, you know, our mental health, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, how that kind of fit into our lives, and then kind of what we want to see moving forward. So at the end, like, feel free to ask any of the people you see on stage questions. And then later we're going to get into the conversation around legacy, around what's next. So we figured that this morning would be kind of fitting to hear some of the intergenerational effects that have happened on the generation that didn't have to go to those schools, you know, and for myself personally, like, I felt like this conversation was important. My Musham Ovid, he went to the school in Beauval. His dad was one of the maintenance people that worked at the school, and so he lived like right beside the school. He didn't have to stay in there, but he would tell me stories of, you know, he never liked to go camping, and I always wondered why. And he said, "My girl, you know, I used to sleep on a floor." He's like, "I used to like mice. They would just run over us." I was like, what? You know, stories like that. And he didn't think anything of it, you know? And my grandparents, my kukum Irene, she went to the school in Ile-a-Crosse, you know? And our family never talked about that. They never talked about it. They were proud Catholic people. They went to church all the time. I was always forced to go on Sunday, even though I didn't want to, you know? So we're going to talk about some of that and how that's impacted our lives. And, you know, sitting with the Survivors Committee over the past year and a half that I've been involved in this work, and meeting different survivors along the way, I've heard very, very mixed things about, not being able to pass language onto their children and grandchildren, being ashamed to share the stories of the school, how it's impacted them, or, personal stories, but also even just opening up about being there at all to your children or grandchildren. And so I thought maybe, we were thinking maybe this would be helpful to hear from us on, if we wanted to hear those stories, how maybe we can come together and begin to heal some of that way that we start to share and we start to heal together, because, the not knowing can also be really harmful. And so I'm not going to get too deep into things. I'm going to let these brilliant, brilliant people, these brilliant friends of mine, kind of share more of that. So I'm going to pick on my friend here, Carrie Ann. We had a really good discussion this morning. And I just want to start with just that. So growing up, where or how did residential schools, how did even more particularly the Ile-a-Crosse residential school, where did that fit in your life?
Well, growing up, my parents or my grandparents never really talked about it. It was never really talked about in school. The place where I learned more about residential school and all of the things that happened there was in university. And that's where I started to question the church and question my religion, because I was Catholic. I have all my sacraments and everything. And I don't want to say it was forced on me. It's just that that's what my parents believed in. That's what my grandparents believed in. It's something I don't believe in to this day. And I remember when the burials started to come out and all the young children were found at the residential school sites. And my mom calls me and she says, "My girl, I get it now." And I just said, "Thank you for understanding. You get it now. Thank you for understanding and letting me believe what I believe in." So yeah, it was never really there growing up. It was never really taught in schools. One thing, I do have my Bachelor of Education, and I did teach in Ile-a-Crosse for a little while. I don't teach anymore. I work with the Métis Nation, and one thing I kind of did when I was in school or teaching is I really tried to teach those things to my students, because it was really never taught. And the other thing is, I always tell history teachers, social study teachers, Indigenous studies teachers, stop teaching from the textbook. We need to bring elders into the school. Let them teach us the stories and let them teach us the real history of what happened. Because the textbooks are a colonized way of teaching us. And we need our generations to learn about those things. It shouldn't happen in university. It should happen from elementary school to high school. But yeah.
Thank you, Carrie Ann. So I'm going to move on to Candace, and maybe you can just introduce yourself. Sorry, I didn't really get into introductions. I just assume we all know each other. Or there's the question, "Who's your mom?" Yeah, and then you'll know. Or "Who's your kukum?"
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Michelle, for inviting me up here on the weekend. I'm Candace. I'm a wait from Buffalo Narrows, Peterson, the Liberty, Morin, the Morassi, the whole, we're all cousins, I think. I'm a mom foremost. That's my biggest job. I was lucky to have been raised by my parents, one of which was sober. And so that's very important, and that's probably one of the main factors of me being up here today and being able to share willingly about the stories and our journeys. I have 4 wonderful kids who I'm raising here in the city right now, just for personal reasons. My grandma, Martha Waite, whom I brought on Friday, and she was lucky enough to not have had to go to residential school. but most of her siblings did. And so growing up, we didn't, we as in our family didn't talk about it because it, it wasn't a thing. It was one of those, we kept it in the closet. And then sometimes when, families would gather and there would be alcohol and fighting and talking and you did this and you didn't go and you didn't have to go through that. And so that I remember, as a young kid. And then as I grew up and wiser, trying to be real stoic right now, we could see, like, I started to notice in some of my cousins and that they were feeling the effects of the residential school and through the alcoholism and addictions and the trauma. And so it's very, very important to talk about this. I was so happy on Friday that this room was packed, and literally I recognized a lot of the cookums and mushums, and I was proud, for the way that things are going, because it probably didn't start off in a good way. So my grandma had shared stories of being in the convent, and she learned to sing there. And so I followed her to church willingly on Sundays because it was music. That was the only reason that I would follow my grandma to church, is because she played organ, and she still does. And one of the good things she said about the convent was that they taught her how to sew, and then she taught me how to sew, and then she taught my daughter how to sew. So, sharing the good stories about the relationships that you made, and just keeping those memories alive, because that's really important. We have to stop, shoving them down and then waiting too long to recover from it. So that's my story, Jordan.
Thank you, Candace. And Willis, you guys might recognize this guy. He joined us on the papal visit when we went to Edmonton and Musqueam, and he's been key in helping us translate in the Dene language to people back home. And then also here, he's been interviewing some of our survivors. So a big thank you to Willis for all your support along the way through this. So maybe just, you can introduce yourself a little bit, but also I pose the same question to you. Where did it sit in your life, and how did you see it kind of manifesting in your community?
Okay, Masi, si Willis Janvier Houche. Tintelas tours in Ile-a-la-Crosse, Saskatchewan, and the Clearwater River Dene Nation band member. And I live in Musja, Treaty 4 territory. So Treaty 6 Ganai de Masi notice. And for the Crees, Willis, Netigasin, Lalash, Geate, Ochinia. I believe I said that right, but I took 2 Cree classes, so. But, growing up in Lalash, I never knew about the schools, the residential school. Half my family is Métis and half are status. So my dad, my grandfather, they never went. I know some of my relatives, they probably did attend. My grandfather comes from Dillon, so I didn't know any. I still didn't know that a lot of the people here I see from my community that went there. So that's new to me too. That's, I would hear stories about in the schools that were run by the missionaries, the things that they did, from my parents. But I didn't realize how much it affected me until later on, and I started podcasting and sharing the language as they share. And last year I was at a conference just emceeing, and I got to be part of a group session. And one of the questions was, how has residential school affected you? And I didn't know, growing up, I'd never had any reason to deal with it or learn about it. But when that question was asked, I got real emotional, and I didn't know, because I didn't know how much I had affected. I was helping other people. I didn't know. And anytime things got tough for me, I would get a message. I didn't want a podcast anymore. It'd be a residential school survivor. Thank you for your podcast. I'm trying to learn my language. So now I see how much it has affected me and how important it is to speak in Dene, share my Dene language, and and most importantly, everybody else's stories. So, until this day, I just keep going, try to learn more about it. It's still like, what the hell? It makes me think, what the hell, when I hear someone's story that I went through this, and why is it not being told? And I have a daughter. We live in Moose Jaw, predominantly white people, some Native people. But since the graves were found, my daughter started asking questions, and I didn't have much to tell her. I would just pass on whatever was passed on to me by some of my guests or the people that I've met along the travels. That's what I would pass on. But one of the things is I try to teach her my language, and it's very hard for us because it's just her and I. And she said, teach me, just add an English word so I can learn it, so I can put it together. So that's the legacy that is passed on, that, for myself now, I just try to provide the language for people to understand and learn. And, it's been a tough journey. I interviewed a bunch of people over the last few days, and now I got to go home and process all of this over again. And then what's the next step? How is this affecting me? How am I going to take care of myself? And make sure everyone else's story is heard. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I understand. I want to be very conscious that sometimes for us to ask, don't keep it hidden anymore. That's a lot to ask of you all. I understand that. So I want us to be very conscious that, share what you can when you can, but know that, I think my Kukum and Mushum for me, where it sat was they were trying to protect us. They didn't want us to know the bad parts, because they always just said, no, it was good. I learned to read and write, but then there's the things that we don't talk about, which are, people in Meadow Lake, the Muniao, who got a grade 12 education and got to become doctors and engineers, and the wealthy farmers, we don't get to talk about that comparison. So I think all that to say, I think many people in our generation are ready. We're ready, and we're open and willing, and we want to learn, because we want to be able to help you, and we want to be able to heal with you, And so the next question for all of you, and I'll leave it open to who's ready to answer, but how do you see impacts of the residential school affecting our generation, and how do you see it in our communities affecting maybe yourself or the people around you?
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, that's a good question. I just want to bring it back to the elder who opened here this morning with our prayer, and he mentioned addictions. He dealt with addictions, and it was passed on here the last couple of days that we deal with this from the legacies of the school trauma, intergenerational trauma, and 12-step programs are there available. But and then he mentioned it wasn't until I got to learn about myself that I was able to start healing and be sober. On myself, I'm sober 8 years now, and I've used these tools now, and I try to smudge and thank you. 8 years sobriety is good, but I hope one day we don't have to clap for our young people that they have accomplished that. I hope we could just live and understand each other without having to take a drink, or because we don't know ourselves. And I think that question relates to that too, which is why we're asking everybody. I know I can be a little pushy with my questions, but it's to understand you guys. And, I don't want to learn it in university. I want to go to the people. There's so many stories that I've heard in Dene that I can't get in university, because Nohayatia, it's in our language, right? So I better understand myself, and then it becomes the identity. This is who I am. You know, if it's family members that come up here, and it's like a giant puzzle. I always say that with Dene people, because we're everywhere. The language here is different than there, and you know, Cree too, right? All the same. We're all the same, Dene. And you know, how are we going to put those pieces together? It was mentioned here that some might not be here the next 5 years, you know, which is the sad truth. Now we're gonna, that big giant 1,000-piece puzzle, there's gonna be a piece missing. Please, please don't let that piece, you know, maybe something you're holding on to. I know it's a lot. And I'm in Indigenous social work now. I quit oil field life, and I wanted to do social work. So I've talked to a lot of people that are dealing with these intergenerational effects, the trauma, and I understand it's heavy, but having a safe space to be able to talk about this is very important. Somebody you trust. You know, it's okay. There might be somebody in your community that is willing to take initiative in documenting this stuff without trust being broken, because that's one thing too. This person said this, you know, the lateral stuff in our communities, that is very strong too. We got to overcome that, so we be able to tell the kids in the future, you know, election comes around, it's about the youth. Well, you know, there's no election now. I want to be able to help the young people share your story in the future. And I just ask everybody, you know, to participate as much as you can. Even if it's just one thing that you can pass on, well, there's going to be someone willing to put those pieces together. So, Masi.
Thank you, Willis. So yeah, I can go. So the effects that I see in our generation right now and in our relatives is, so for my job at the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, I am the homelessness manager, and I oversee homelessness and all the things that happen there. And a big thing that I always want to tell people is that when you see a homeless person, you don't know their story. You don't know what they're going through or what they've been through. I always just ask, be kind. Those are our relatives on the streets. Me and my team, we go volunteer every single month at either the Friendship Inn or the Saskatoon Food Bank, places that help our people. And I see a lot of Indigenous people that walk through those doors. And I know that is something from intergenerational trauma. They might be survivors. They might be from intergenerational trauma. We don't know. So always be kind. Another thing that is very big with our generation right now is addictions and mental health. We're losing a lot of our people to suicide, to drug use, to alcoholism. And that's another big one that our generation is trying to heal from. I've been sober as well too. I fell off my wagon though in Mexico. So I've been sober now, I want to say, for about 3 months. And before that I was sober for a year. And I really want to stay on that path and show my children that, and break that cycle of alcoholism, because it runs in my family a lot. A lot of people in my family are alcoholics, and I know that they're just trying to hide that pain that they feel. And that's what I tried to hide when I was drinking and using drugs, is those things. So really trying to guide, especially for my children. I'm a mom too. I have two little ones at home, a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I just want to break that cycle for my children. And hopefully when they see that mom doesn't do that, when they're older, they won't. And it will finally be broken in my family. And that's something that I'm really trying to do.
Thank you, Carrie. The effects in our communities are really showing up, and it's almost scary. When we go back home, we see a lot of lost souls, we'll call them, who are a product of the traumas from residential school. We're passing that down, when we should be passing down our tradition and our culture and, family values. But it's not your fault, right? Like, we have to remember that. I want to share a message of hope, though. I know that it's tough for everybody, but to keep pushing forward. I went through my own personal journey. I was a nurse, and felt like I was at the top of my career. I was living life the way I thought I should, and then I got slammed down. Creator said, "Slow down, girl." In 2015, I had a diagnosis of cancer. At the time, I had 3 young children at home, and being the bull-headed, proud Métis from Buffalo Narrows that I was raised to be, I thought I didn't think. I knew that I was going to come out of it, and I knew it was my job to share a story, and I was left on this earth with a mission. My mission is to just help and support people who are going through their own journey. I recently started a job with Métis Nation as well as a patient support worker. When I was navigating the healthcare system, there was definite gaps. I was sometimes the only brown woman in the room, and my stories and my support systems were different than others. And so I've been really trying to help our nation move on so that progress as they are. I wanted to jump on that wagon because it's going in a good place. And so my job in my role is to help any of you who are navigating a difficult diagnosis, a chronic illness, and to help you get the right supports. Terry's my cohort, Terry Hansen-Gardner. She was here. She was that light for me. I was, a young woman, and Terry had gone through that journey, and so she helped me along. So she's doing what we need to do, right? Is to support the next person and keep that going. So I wanted you guys to know that that's available for you. We can assist you when you're here in the city, and as well, to get here. But I just that hope. Our nation is rising, and I'm just really proud that I hope it gets better and not worse. So thank you all for coming this weekend, spending it in the city. Wah wah. Town clothes. Good stuff.
Thank you, Candace and Carrie Ann and Willis. So for the next one, I want to share a little story about this old mushum. I was living in L'Orange, and I was I was struggling a little bit. I was trying to be a little party girl, trying to, didn't really have a direction. I was just working and living and just doing whatever. And I just didn't feel good. I just felt all the time, and I was like, what am I missing, And one of my friends was like, why don't you come sweat with us? And so I went out, and it was just a little ways out of L'Orange, and I went out there, and I had heard this guy's name before, but I didn't know him. And I walked up, and I was sitting out there by myself, and I was looking at the fire. Sorry. Thank you. Is this from your slop pail? That's how we get through it, hey? We laugh. I'm good. Yeah. And this is a big moment for me. I don't know if he realizes, but he will now. But this old guy came up and he said, "Do you like it here? Do you feel good?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, I feel calm for the first time in a while. You know, my head isn't just going." And he said, "Oh, that's good." He said, you know, your cookums raised me. I didn't even tell him my name. I didn't tell him anything. He said, "Your cookum Antoinette, when my parents would go out, she would take care of me. And your tapan Mistadu, she taught me this. She taught me this medicine. She taught me this way." And I wasn't in Ile-a-Crosse. I wasn't at home, you know? And I was just like, wow, you know? I never met my tapan Mistadu. I never met my cookum Margaret Johnson. But I met this man, and he connected all of that for me. And it was like, I'm sorry I'm getting so emotional. I don't mean to bring it heavy, but it was really, really it was the thing that changed my life for me in a really big way. And it was identity for me. And so kind of since then, I think I was like 23 or 24. And I've been sweating since then, and I've been, learning from different elders and different old people, even just stories, that's been part of my healing. But it was my identity, and that's why I was struggling. I didn't feel comfortable with who I was, and this old man helped me so much. And that's what I think our generation, that's what I feel like is our biggest impact is not being able to be comfortable with who we are. And sometimes when I'm being a little shit and I'm trying to be ungrateful or just like, oh my God, my life is so hard, I think of you guys and I think holy crap, man, they went through some, excuse my language, they went through some tough shit. And I'm sitting here ungrateful for, the opportunity I have to struggle, to learn and grow, And so, hi, Kanaskam Tinmusham, thank you so much for helping me. Honestly, you mean the world to me. So thank you. And now to the less crybabies over here. I just want to ask you, you guys are all parents. I'm not a parent, but, in my work, I try to help young people. But, feeling those effects and seeing that and, not necessarily having to go to schools, but still living through the impacts of residential schools. What do you hope to change? Maybe it's the things that you didn't learn because it wasn't time for, your kukums, mushums, or your setsunas or haba or hama to share with you yet. But what do you want to carry forward to your children or to the next generation in healing or in hope? And that's what I want to end with is, some goodness and the resiliency that you guys all give to us. Is what do we want to see next now?
I'll start. I have just a little bit more experience than these guys. I guess I'm the elder on the stage here. One of the messages that I teach my children time and time again is that you can do hard things. We've gone hiking. We hauled our Métis flag up a mountain and they did not like me that day. They don't like hiking. Don't call it hiking. Just say you're going for a walk. But to be on the land and to laugh and share and, if it's crying, but that you can do it and you can get to the top and you can make your way through it. My youngest, he can hardly say residential school, but they teach it in his school now. And, they didn't to us, right? That was that chapter that we missed and that we didn't start learning about until recently. I'm really proud of these younger people on stage and their stories and journeys, because this is just the beginning. It's really becoming trendy to be sober. And the Willises and the Carrie-Anns and the Jordans and like the next generation is looking up to us. And so it's really important that we do our duties as well. I took my youngest was swimming at Manitou, and I could tell that he was struggling. He was trying to get to the middle of the Lake Manitou to dive off. And the mama bear and me, I'm sitting right on shore and my heart's pounding and I'm, ready to just jump in and catch up to him. And then he made it back and he said, "Oh, that was hard." And he's just, really dramatic. And I said, "Yeah, but you did it, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, you know what I remembered? That I could do hard things." And my little heart just was so swollen and I was so proud. And I'm like, "You're getting it." That's the message we need to teach our young people, that you can break the cycle. You can do hard things. And it's a message that I want my kids and the other youth, especially from my community and surrounding, because we are the North, to remember that. So that's my message.
So the things that I teach my children are to always be proud of your culture, always be proud to be Métis. In our home, we do smudge every day. My big one doesn't really like smudging a lot, but my little one loves it. Every time I light that smudge, he comes and he smudges, and it's just something we do every single morning to have a good day, to ask Creator to give us to guide us, to have a good day and all that. I also, for my children, I immerse them a lot in the culture. So I brought my daughter here when we had the supper, and I wanted her to come, and I told her to get off her phone and actually watch the dancers and all that stuff. Just to immerse my children in their culture. I take them to all the little events all over the city. We go home and we do things when we go up north. So it's just, I really want my children to be proud to be Métis and to be proud of their culture. And once again, I'm really trying to break that cycle for my children. So when they grow up, they're not living the life or the traumas that I've had to live. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. For myself, it's a big thing is the language. Whatever I can do, like I mentioned, it's tough. But also, my daughter, she's half white. I have a son in Ile-a-Crosse as well. And, Papa Ted and Barb, they do a good job there. I'm sure they're... And my daughter, whatever I can do to make sure she knows that she's Dene, and a couple weeks ago, she says, I'm more Dene than white. And it was like a proud moment for me, and not to divide anybody or anything, but, if I can get her to wear a ribbon skirt, anything to represent that she's Dene, to be proud of that. And I want to be able to pass that on. And just in last two, there's, I just want to share one more thing about sharing language for Cree or Dene. It does not matter. I was MC at a conference in Turner Lake, and I asked, we were doing a giveaway. It was to give away, say, good morning in Dene or something. And this young lady come up and she said, "You won't laugh at me." The first thing she says is, "You won't laugh at me." She's already afraid of even speaking her own language. I hope we can take away from that. In ceremony, we're taught that there is no right or wrong way. And I hope we can get away from that, residential school legacy, that we don't have to pass that on. And, I met this elder from the Satu Great Bear Lake, Delaney, online. He shared prophets, stories about prophets, the Dene prophets up there. And the atomic bomb for Hiroshima that was dropped in World War II was mined by Dene people. So the Dene people that weren't taught how to mine ore in the 60s and 70s, they all got sick and died of cancer. And late Morris Nayeli, lost a generation of language and stories and culture. And I hope we can learn from that, you know, whatever it is we're sharing with you, we're not demanding, but just asking that it is passed on so we're not missing another generation of stories and language for people younger than ourselves and our children, you know. And I hope we can all come together, Cree, Dene. We're all family. Everywhere we're related, you know, and I want to thank you for having me here, talk to people. Tony, for her beautiful voice, you know, it's always good. That was the only drum that I knew in La Loche. I never knew about the drum. You know, that's one of the things the legacy of residential school has done to me, and I hope to change that for everybody, you know, going forward. So, Masina Hussein Salutina.
Okay, so I think we've kind of covered it, you know, how you grew up, how it affected you kind of as you were growing up. And you know, this is not to guilt or shame people. This is to I hope this has helped in understanding, you know, open the conversation maybe. You know, we don't know where our young people are at and how they want to learn about residential schools, maybe even more broadly, but maybe even about your personal experience, right? Help us to help you through this, you know, because we're stronger than you might think. I know my kukum and mushum always tried to protect us, but you know, it hits me really hard sometimes to know, you know, there isn't more that I could have done to help them through that healing. But man, did they carry it well. You know, they were so happy and joyful and grateful for everything all the time. And I see that in all of you guys as well. So thank you so much. And a big thank you to our panelists here for being so vulnerable and so open and honest with us. It's never an easy conversation. And so thank you for, you know, this is such an attentive crew of people here. And so, you know, I hope that we can only make you proud and honor, you know, your legacy, which is resilience and beauty and power. That's what you guys have taught us all. So hi, Knaskumtin, Marcy Cho. A big round of applause for our beautiful panel here. Egose. And Willis closed it off in a good way. Our next conversation is about legacy. You know, he talked about those negative impacts of the legacy. Now we're going to move into the positive legacy that we want to leave for the next generation. So we want to hear from you. We want to really, really dig deep into what we want to see next, how we want to move forward in this, how we want to move forward in this together is the biggest thing. We want to open our lines of communication. We want to understand each other, and we want to create a solution for, you know, what we see in our communities that are troubling us all, but that have also brought us so much strength. So, hi, Exa.
Okay. All right. So we'll say thank you very much to our panel. You know, very, very powerful when we listen to our youth and you as survivors sitting here. In spite of all the trauma, the pain, the hurtfulness, you know, that you had to go through, one thing that's absolutely clear is our kids are strong. They're resilient, and they're going to do good. Their kids will do even better. And I think that's the message, I think that's plainly clear listening to our panel. So let's give them one more nice round of applause for their strength and their courage for coming up here and sharing their stories. Yeah, and I'll just call Carrie Ann Willis and Candice Wade back. We have some gifts for you. Okay, so now I'm going to call up our Vice President, Michelle LeClaire, up to the stage. And this is the wrap up to our session. And like I said, on Friday, Michelle LeClaire, our Vice President, has been leading the file for the Ile-a-Crosse residential school issue. And I absolutely commend her effort as part of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan for her focused, continuous approach to try and bring a resolution for the Ile-a-Crosse survivors. And she's worked hard. She lobbies continuously with government to try and do what everybody in this room wants. We want a settlement. We want to begin a path to truth and reconciliation. And we want to begin our healing, which is the bottom line. So I'm just going to call her up, or just ask her to say a few opening remarks before we get into our...
And you, Dwayne and Louis were kind of designated the spokespeople in a way as part of our communication strategy as we, go into different conferences as we're doing this work. A lot of it can be very last minute. It can be a lot of travel, and it's a lot of like heavy emotional work that needs to be done. So the Survivors Committee has designated them as being kind of, that person to share and do that really, really hard work. So I wanted to invite Dwayne to sit with us as well. I'm going to ask them a few questions. Michelle's going to share a little bit about this work, and then the floor is open to you guys. And we want to hear, maybe some points on what do you want to see next, but also the opportunity to ask Michelle and Dwayne and our team what's going to be happening next.
Okay. Oh yeah, here I am. Good morning, everyone. First of all, the other day when I was speaking, I didn't acknowledge as much as I should the Ile-a-Crosse Committee. And I'd ask the members of the Ile-a-Crosse Committee to please stand. I see Margaret here, and I see our chair, Herb Norton, back there somewhere. Can I ask all of the committee members that are here to stand? And we have to give them a round of applause. They've worked so hard. Thank you for all the work that you've done. And I know that over the years, it's been frustrating for them because there hasn't been a lot of information shared with them. And so trying to do the best that they can for their communities and for the survivors. So I just want to acknowledge the good work that they've been doing. So I'm not going to talk much because I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think next steps are. I've heard a couple of suggestions, one of which is a woman, a survivor, had said, wouldn't it be nice if we could get the women together to talk about their experiences in a safe space where it's just women talking and telling their stories. And so that might be a next step. It was suggested to me. So really, at the end of the day, we want to hear now where you guys want to go and, what are the things you want to see. Some of the things that we need to talk about is, as you all know, with the discovery of so many unmarked graves of our children across the country, it's been suggested that we may want to do ground penetration up at the Ile-a-Crosse school in that area to see if we have any unmarked graves. So those are things that people are talking about, and I just throw that out. The mics are open. I'll turn it over to Dwayne, and then let's have a chat about what you guys think.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. Yeah, so and I guess that's what we're looking for. The committee is looking for ideas in terms of what like Michelle said, what should we do next, and this doesn't end here. I mean, we have 3 representatives flying to Toronto today or tomorrow to represent us on a panel on a Canadian-wide residential school gathering, and that's Louis Gardner. And we have Emile Janvier, and we have Margaret Aubuchon that will be representing us on a panel in Toronto, and they will continue to tell the story of the Ile-a-Crosse Residential School. And they will be also meeting with the federal special interlocutor, Kimberly Murray, and hopefully government officials that are there as well. So the lobbying will continue. So we just want to know in terms of what we've done here, what else should we do, or what else can we do, to continue to support this initiative. So I'll take it to this mic over here first. Go ahead, Morley.
Yes, hello, testing. Morley Norton from the community of Buffalo Narrows, and first of all, I'd like to thank the Métis for allowing us to come here and sponsoring us and stuff like that. But one of the concerns I have in regards to the composition and who we are, well, is it the Métis that are going to be leading it, or is it the committee from Ile-a-Crosse? Because I want that specifically clear, because I do have some problems with with our local community group, because we haven't met for 7 years or whatever, and there's been a lot of problems in regards to handling of finances, but I don't want to bring them up. But when it comes to our committee or versus the Métis organization, I'd rather have that committee that we've been battling with, that they're the ones that are the main leaders of this group, and if necessary, putting a resolution forward to make sure that we give you that mandate to carry that out without the interference. But of course, we got the sponsorship of the Métis organization for funding. So that's just one of the concerns I have, and maybe you can clarify that. And the other one is in regards to our negotiations, why do we have to have the province in there? Why don't we just go after the feds like the First Nation people did? Well, a lot of us are turning First Nation, but I mean, in a sense, why can't we go to the federal government? Why are we being go to the province? Because it seems like it just drags on, and I think the feds will deal with us quite quickly. And the other concern is maybe the third one is, I know before when it kind of started, it was the people that lived in the residence versus the town. So now I believe we're all together. So I just want to make sure that's clarified, if that's a total suit, that everybody's going. So that's kind of 3 things, okay, that I want to listen to in regards to getting those clarified. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that question, Morley.
Okay, so yeah, Morley, you asked 3 questions. The composition of the committee, who's leading what. So we have plaintiffs that have been named that are connected to the committee. So the committee leads the charge. They're the ones that are responsible for giving instructions to the lawyers. The Métis Nation is here to support not just the committee, but all of the members of the class. So that means all of the people that went to Ile-a-Crosse Residential School. Doesn't matter whether you're First Nations, Métis. We have said that we will represent anyone or support anyone that went to that school. And so I hope that answers your first question. I think those are really good questions, Morley. The second question was, why do we continue to, try and negotiate with the province? The reason for that is the province funded the school for a number of years. And so the federal government was also involved in a number of ways, sometimes funding, sometimes sending RCMP officers out to collect students to go to the school, all of those sorts of things. The federal government needs the province to come to the table. Look, if it were up to me, I would say the same thing. I would say, look, the federal government is an easier entity to deal with when we're talking about Ile-a-Crosse. You saw the clip that Jordan had put up on the screen the other day, where Blake Desjardins from Alberta was questioning the federal minister Miller, and Miller said, we need the province at the table. And one of the other reasons why we need them at the table is they hold a lot of information that we need going forward. So things like lists or how much payments they made. And someone made a really good statement the other day. I can't remember who it was, but they said, what about the family allowance? So if the federal government was sending your family allowance to the provincial government, is there collusion there? And does that that's another argument that you know that they were together. So I hope that answers your question. And then on the last point that you made, yes, the first lawsuit was only for residential school survivors. So those people that stayed at the boarding school. We had an opportunity once our past law firm was fired to then bring it up to date. We brought it up to date because there's been different legal cases and different settlements that speak to Ile-a-Crosse. So we have the people that actually stayed at the school. We have what they call day scholars, so kids that went to the school and then went home. We have included intergenerational survivors. We've included those that have passed on, so we can negotiate for their estate so that their children or families get some compensation. So there's, it's kind of all inclusive. We didn't want to leave anybody behind, as I said the other day. We wanted to include everyone so that it's fair. We listened to our young people here earlier talk about, the intergenerational effects that they see. And the other piece in terms of negotiation is the legacy piece, which I'd like to really talk about today. How do we fix the mess that the Catholic Church left us, that we see in our communities today? I heard these young people talking about, I think in 2 years, you guys lost how many of your friends?
Yeah, Carrie Ann and I were having a conversation this morning. When we were in high school, I think I was in like grade 9. It's kind of when it started till about grade 11, 12. Well, and it happened for many years, but we lost about 7 of our friends, our close friend circle, to suicide.
Yeah. And I mean, that, I don't know for sure, but when you think about it and you see it in every one of those communities that were students at that school, there's got to be a correlation there, and it's intergenerational effects. So we want to talk about that. So I hope I answered all your questions, Morley. Thank you.
Yeah, so just in addition to that, before we go to Tony over here, Morley, Louis and I actually met with the Prime Minister last summer, and we asked him that specific question: why does the province need to be part of the solution here when the federal government can actually solve this for us right now? If he gave that mandate to settle the Ile-a-Crosse residential school issue, it would be settled already. And his words to Louis and I was, we don't want to let the province off the hook. Now that to me was a very, very bad response to our question. And then we also told him, well, the federal government, this school in Ile-a-Crosse started in the 1860s. Saskatchewan didn't become a province till 1905. So they operated the Ile-a-Crosse school for decades prior to Saskatchewan becoming a province. And then the province took over the school. So they're having a jurisdictional squabble between the province and the feds, and we're left to suffer because of that. So that message was clear to the Prime Minister when we met with him this summer. Tony?
Good morning. I wanted to speak on behalf of youth and children. They need to be very much a part of what goes on with the Métis Association. I particularly want to speak about La-Loche because that's where I'm from and that's where I work in a school. I work at La-Loche Elementary School. There's over 400 students, and I'm the only counselor in that school. They keep advertising social worker positions in that school, but no one seems to want to come over there as a social worker to work with me. So moving forward, if you can find funding to place people to work on healing initiatives at school with the students, us counselors, we can take the part of individual counseling, but we need assistance to have people come in place in that school to run groups with healing initiatives, bringing in elders. And when you look at the whole system, the jails have elders employed full-time. Why don't the schools get funding to have elders employed full-time too? 2, 3 elders. If you look at the schools, they're overcrowded in the north, and they need bodies to work with them to function, to move forward. I try to cover as much as I can working at elementary school, more focus on grade 5 and 6s, because this coming fall, the grade 6s that are there will be at the high school. And younger than that, I work with them individual. I also do group work, classroom presentations. Like the scope of duties is so large for one person. Now, I want to talk to us parents too. Everything that goes on at home affects the children very much. I do counseling at school. There are days my heart is just hurting. I want to say this not to put people down, but I'm going to ask you to be very mindful of this. A lot of kids come to school with close reeking of addictions that are at home. They can't hide it. The harsh drugs that's in our community is seeping into clothing. And you can smell it anywhere. Evenings in Saskatoon, some areas, it just reeks with that. When we talk healing and wellness, let's not just point at Métis Association, Chief and Council, Mayor and Council. We need to have it at home too. You know, at one time, I used to drink heavy because I was dealing with a lot of pain, and I was very suicidal. My plan to kill myself was to drive in front of a semi-truck, and I overcame that. Every time a semi-truck was coming, I used to shake, and I was getting flashbacks of my children's faces in my mind. And I would just shake and pull over and park there. And I think that's why I do what I do, counseling today, because I love empowering people. I worked with Seho 19 years as a mental health therapist. 2019, when my son died of cancer, I couldn't stand working in a hospital setting after that. So I applied for a job at the school, elementary school, and I got hired there. I love those children I work with. I have 5 drums in my office. I take 5 students at a time in my office. They love drumming with me, singing, and then I do group work with them. But what's 5 out of 450 students? So we need people under Métis Association to come into the schools, to be employed, to be part of the healing work that needs to be done. You know, election time, everybody says, children are our tomorrow. Let's prove it. Let's help them to heal. Because everything they experience at home, they bring it to school. And I'm telling you this not because I'm looking down on people, but it's reality. If you want leaders for tomorrow, if you want powerful younger generation to grow up to be powerful people, let's do our part at home as well. So continue with healing. Masu.
Thank you, Tony.
I think Magic was next, but I just wanted to bring to notice here, Anne-Marie and some of our team put little sticky notes on tables. There's a board here. Everyone was putting real cute little messages like really good sessions, really good vibes. We were hoping that people would put their ideas for legacy on here. We didn't really communicate that very well, but the messages were really nice, so thank you. But if you have those sticky notes, if you're too shy to speak or, you know, there's not enough time, whatever, put your ideas on those sticky notes, leave them at the table or bring them up to this board and we'll make sure we're going to compile all this stuff so we have a plan to move forward. Okay.
Really
Magic?
quickly,
Okay.
can I just really quickly respond to Tony? Because I think she makes some excellent points. And so these are, if we think about what she's talking about, these are opportunities. And she's right. Election time, people talk about the kids. We talk about sports. We talk about all of these things, and you know, it's the first thing that almost gets forgotten about. But an opportunity in Tony's case might be us, the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, working with Clearwater to sort of come up with a strategy and cost share. Because she's right. We know what's happening in our communities. She knows firsthand what's happening in her schools, and it happens in our schools here in Saskatoon too, and other places. So I just wanted to respond to her really quickly.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank the panel that was up there, the youth. Jordan, when you broke down, I'm telling you, I felt for you. Because I was in your shoes at one time. We all went through the same thing. And that's not going to be the end of it. You went through a lot. And you had great grandparents and great parents. I remember Ovid when he worked at the co-op store. When he ran out of something, you go in there, yo, may way ma. Papayo, itan. They always just say it's coming. But I want to thank Michelle Leclerc for taking the lead role from the Métis Nation. And Dwayne, you have done a tremendous amount of good work, you and Philip. So glad that you were there to support this issue from years back. We fought hard to keep it alive. And now that you got a new law firm to deal with it, it's great. But the organizational part of it, I think I discussed it with you yesterday. It could have been more at this conference. but we can't fit everything into the amount of time we had because there were so many people that wanted to share their experiences, and it's heartbreaking to hear a lot of those. But we do have a beautiful park in Ile-a-Crosse, War Veterans Park. It's in the stages of being fixed up a bit and expanded or something like that. But hopefully this summer, the Métis Nation, well, the two regional areas, 2 and 3, Ile-a-la-Crosse and Ile-a-Crosse, could probably get together to sponsor a gathering such as this. Maybe we might have more people, we don't know. But at least you don't have to pay for the hotel rooms and feed the people there. We got good caterers up north. I think that would be a good thing. Let's get organized. We know exactly who's representing us and how we are going to communicate. Because as I said before, 2 months ago, I stated that communication was very poor. And me as a survivor, not only me, the other 400 or 500 people, we're all pissed off because we weren't getting no information. We kept being told, oh, we don't have nothing to say. Well, we don't care about if we have nothing to say. Give us something. Now, speaking about our representation, it's a new lawsuit, and I believe there's only, 4, 5 people on there? 6. Dwayne?
6.
6, okay. Well, that's a good number, but I think we still need a functioning committee, right? Yeah, okay. That's another thing, Morley, I agree with Morley there. We need to know who's representing us and how are they doing. This is the time when we get to have an organizational day. If we do have a meeting this summer somewhere in the north, because Turner Lake also has a beautiful park there where we can hold up such meetings. It won't be that far for us to travel. So let's get this thing on the road. We want to think about the future. I'm glad the issues in Ile-a-la-Crosse were brought out because we do have the same problem all over the whole north. But in Ile-a-Crosse, we're very, very fortunate to have our local school division. Just a local school division represents 2 schools. So we were able to get some extra funding that we're able to keep there. We have a couple elders that work at the school 2 days a week. But still, I don't think that's enough. But in some cases, you don't want somebody that's on a pension to get paid too much. You know darn well that the government is going to claw that back. We can never win. We keep losing and losing. Because the amount of pensions that we have, a lot of us have to continue working. But the survivors, I was so happy to see all the survivors that came, especially on Friday. We were just packed in here. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the funding. I thanked Glenn for letting it happen. And I also told him, I said, we have political differences, but we're family here. We'll talk the same way. We'll leave the politics on the other side of those doors there, because that's where all the politicking has been going on. But here, we're family. So let's keep it that way, and I'll let the other folks maybe they want to question something or give advice. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Magic.
So one of the things I just wanted, sorry, just really quickly before your question, you brought up a good point. Another shout out to Philip, because I don't know how he got a hold of you all. We didn't have phone numbers. We had maybe some Facebooks. But as you're leaving, if we don't have a phone number for you, or if your brothers or sisters or your cousins that went to the school, if we don't have their contact information, I'm going to sit at the back of the room as you're walking out, and I'll collect that just so we can contact people. We were just whispering a little bit about, coming together again in the summer and the fall, whenever. But how do we contact all of you? Okay, so that's one way, that's one thing we really need to improve on, is how are we getting this information out? Because I think that's a part of the issue, is we don't have everybody's like phone numbers change and that kind of thing. So we just need to make sure we're always updating your information so we can get a hold of you. Okay. We have another question here.
Hello. My name is Bernie Petite. I'm from Duck Lake, and I work in Kiniston Soto Nation as a land-based therapist. And I help here with the Saskatoon Maxi Center. I was asked to be a support here, and I was just quietly giving some of the recommendations, and I was asked to maybe share them through the microphone. So I am going to mention some truth, and it's not to trigger anybody, but these are just some truths that came from this conference for future consideration. So, Mr. Trudeau, if you're listening. But I'd also like to back up the previous, what Tony's saying. When I came here on Friday, I was late. And I was late because we had an 11-year-old attempt suicide at our school. And so these are real issues for our children, and our children depend on all of our adults to have their poop together to make those decisions. So I really am encouraged to hear leadership and these venues talking about those extra supports. So call me up, Tony. We'll plan a camp. We'll share resources. But what I'd like to share is some of the voices of the individuals that sought me out during this conference. And one of the recommendations was to look in the future to see and demand funding from the government, the federal government, to provide ongoing healthy venues like this that are gender specific. You have women that have been hurt, abused, and after they survived this residential school experience, went home to have further had their light dimmed. And so inside of them, they feel a roar. They feel an empowerment, just waiting, just wanting to be free. And sometimes when there are venues like this, it's really difficult in small communities to be in the same room as a previous abuser and to let that freedom reign. And on the other side of that is that we have had men that have been hurt as children, and they need to have a safe place as men to share their experience and to talk freely and not to be condemned for the burden of shame that was given to them with this experience either. So that is something that I hope gets somewhere, that there's funding so that a gender-specific, a men's wellness and a woman's wellness can come together. And there was another, I think she was actually a student at the school, a Dr. Rita Bouvier. I don't know if I have the last name correct, but that was one that I heard more than once, that they would love to hear those empowerment, be around strong women, and to have that feed their internal fire. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much for those comments, and recommendations. So
These are not going into thin air. Stephanie from Blackbird is mad typing over here. Quincy, my cuz.
That's it. Hello, my name's Quincy Keys. I grew up in Stanley Mission, And when I moved to Stanley, I was just a baby and I didn't really know anything. But my mom moved there because she had to leave an abusive relationship. And so I'm suffering from that generational trauma too, because I had to leave Ile-a-la-Crosse, my home community. And I grew up in Stanley. So that was really tough. And going home, I'll tell you a funny story. I'd go fishing, be really proud of my big jackfish, eh? And I throw it in a sink there. Hey, Ma, fix this for me. And okay, then I would go play. And I'd come back that night, it would still be in the sink. And I'd be like, how come you didn't fix that fish, Mom? And I don't know how to do that. I grew up in residential schools, and that's how I knew. That's like, and I never understood, because we lost how to fish, we lost how to hunt and stuff. But I know how to fix a jack. Not very good, but I'm learning. And I just want to thank my mom for everything. She sacrificed. She quit drinking. She single parent, went to school, and I just first time ever showing up at one of these gatherings and seeing that elder there and smudging with him. And Tinigi, thank you for that sharing circle and all these beautiful people. Now I'm passing that on, and I'm stopping the trauma at my kids, and because I don't drink, and I smudge with them. And I just want to say thank you to all these beautiful people here. You're just keep on trying every day, and that's all we can do is just try. And I love you guys for everything you guys do. Hey, amen.
Chuck?
Ekse, mina pegok na naskomte nao, maga, je parle anglais, so you can understand. I will speak English. The solutions that have been brought together, like one of the suggestions saying, get the women together, that's a really good suggestion, because those are the most oppressed people in the world, is our women, and they continue to be abused, even from us as men. Aboriginal men abuse our women. I work in a prison system. And the majority of those guys that are in that prison, that are living in a city, they were pimps. They pimped out the women, our own women. So that's something that we have to address as men. I used to run circles in Vancouver. And the people from over there used to tell me, well, that's not our way. The medicine wheel is not our way. We have a different way. And I used to say, well, you're using the English language. Is that your way? No, it isn't. So it's easier for us to accept the Western paradigm than it is to accept our own people. That's part of the things that we need to look at. Where is that coming from? Is that a legacy from the residential school? Absolutely it is. Kayas. When I grew up in Ile-a-Crosse, I used to see people coming from Patronac, La Loche. Whenever the bishop would come into town, that town would just be full. And nobody pushed anybody away. We all came together because we had a purpose. What is our purpose now, this whole residential school legacy that we're addressing? We want to heal. We want to address those things. But sometimes, as my sister said here, it's very difficult for the women to bring out those pains that they suffer because those guys are there, right there, the abusers. So we have to start off in that way. I went to a ceremony in northern Manitoba quite a few years ago, and the spirits came in and they said, your women are going to save you. They said there's a place in the tundra where those little trees are. There's a perfect replica of an eagle with his wings spread out and nothing grows on there. The spirit said there's something there for the women. When they are ready, they're going to go get that, whatever it may be. He said, and that's when change is going to start. It's not going to start from the men, it's going to start from the women. That's a very, very important thing. Yaguan ma, what are we doing today to address those things? We have to start at the community level. We can't start off nationally or globally. It's difficult to get people together because it was always that concept of funding, right? Finding the money. But when we live in the same community, we do not need that funding. Kaya suma, when people used to come together, they'd bring the food. They'd live in tents. And it's in the summertime, it's easy. Everything is beautiful. And the children were allowed to run around because they're listening to what's happening and they pick that up. That's, to me, the way to start is in a community. We need some strong women like this young woman right here, Jordan. They're a driving force. So her and I talked on the phone. I didn't know who she was. I didn't even know her dad was Buckley. No, it's not?
Barbara, you have some explaining to do. Just kidding.
No, Buckley and I sat down and we talked about what is happening in the community of Ile-a-la-Crosse. And I offered myself because I do those things that our people used to do a long time ago. Gatherings with a spiritual foundation. What do we call a spiritual foundation? But I've lived in that way for a long time, and I have since found out that spirituality is not the right word for that. It's a science. Everything is a science that we do, how we connect to the land and everything. And there's formulas. And one of the formulas, I was sitting with some people from Ile-a-Crosse, they do sweat lodges. That's a formula. There's a shaking tent ceremony. That's a formula. There's a story in the Bible about Moses and a burning bush. Fire coming out of the bush, and then voices came out. Well, we have a ceremony like that. It's called a shaking tent ceremony. And fire comes out of the top, and then voices come through there. Tagiwito Tamakya going to go back to those things and find out what is it really about? What is going on here? Where did that come from? And how will it help us? How will it help the young people? It will give them a sense of belonging, which is what I heard here from a few people. They called it identity. What is your identity? Who are you? What are we chasing? There's something missing inside of us that's a sense of belonging because we were disrupted by the alcohol and drugs. Very prominent to this day. So we can do those things slowly, one by one, those people will come because they're searching, right? They don't love what they're doing. They're just caught in a cycle of what they're doing. They have been captured. And that was told to us by the elders a long time ago. They said there will be a one-eyed monster that will come into the lives of the people. And the people will fall in love with that monster. They love it so much, they'll take it inside their house and they'll just sit there and they'll look at it. And that's what's captured our minds today. Understanding where that come from and how we can overcome it. One more little short story. I went to in Hazelton. We did a ceremony there. And after it was over, this woman came and said, you know, my daughter's going to kill herself. And we said, well, where's your daughter? She said, right there. So we asked that girl, is it true? Are you going to kill yourself? She said, yeah, I'm going to do it. Just, I haven't decided when, but it's going to happen, she said. Matter of fact. And so this guy that was doing the ceremony asked her, said, is it okay if we do a ceremony with you? She said, go ahead. It's not going to make no difference. So we wrapped her in a star blanket. Like a little baby, we swaddled her, laid her down on the ground. And I had the opportunity to hold her knees down so she doesn't bang. One person on the head, one on each shoulder, and one at the feet. This guy started to play his drum. And he blew that eagle bone whistle. And then these sounds started coming. I don't know how many of you have ever heard The Exorcist or seen that movie. And that's the kind of sounds that was coming out of this girl. and my hair was just standing in the back of my neck. And she was lifting me up with her knees, and that's not possible. After a couple of songs, we took her out of that blanket, and her eyes were just sparkling, big smile on her face, and she said, I don't have to kill myself anymore. I don't have to. I'm going to go to a Sundance. And then the spirits during that time told us there was a suicide spirit that roamed the land a long time ago. And through ceremony, it was put into a rock, kept in a rock in the mountains. But this drilling that they're doing, the mining and all of that, released it. And that now comes to the most vulnerable people, which is the young people. Praise on them. And we feed it. How do we feed it? Gambling, alcoholism, drug addiction, and neglect. That's how we feed that spirit as adults. So that's our part in there. So in order for us to be able to move forward, we have to go inside of ourselves in order to come out in a different way, with different lenses, a different worldview. So that's done at the community level. Individual level first, then community level, like they did in Alkali Lake. That's possible, and that's happening here in Ile-a-la-Crosse, and I'm so happy to see that. And I want to be a part of that. I don't expect any money. As long as you feed me, I'll be all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. And I didn't mean to laugh at you. My dad, you got me confused with Taylor. That's her dad is Buckley. My dad is Emil. He's over there. He's like, what the hell, Barbara? We've got another question here.
It's not really a question, it's just a life experience. I spent 8 years in the Ile-a-Crosse convent, and I noticed for myself that I lost my ability to make decisions. I always seemed to make the wrong ones, and my family paid the price. I was just wondering, did this happen to others coming out of the convent, or is it just me? You know, I raised 6 children as a single mother, and I had a hard time, and I made a lot of wrong decisions. Now it's affected my children. And I really think that having a women's gathering would do good for a lot of us women, because we went in there strong. We came out weak because we were told constantly what to do. We never could make our own decisions because of always routines, do this, do that. You couldn't even wear the clothes you wanted to wear. They gave you the clothes to wear. Even if you, like my mom spent so much time making our outfits, but they wouldn't let me wear the top that went with the other skirt. You know, it was, you do this, that's it. So I had a hard time coming out of that convent and raising my family to make decisions. I hesitated. I lost a lot of trust in people. I just had a really hard time. I'm just wondering if anybody else got affected by that. And I really do wish that we have a women's conference, because a lot of us really need it. Thank you.
Thank you for your courage and vulnerability to share that. Marlene, did you want to respond? Sorry.
For those that don't know who I am, I'm Marlene Hansen, and I'm very honored to be a part of this gathering. I'm so honored that I was able to sit in on the interviews with a lot of the survivors and the younger ones that were affected, the intergenerational younger generation that were affected. So I got to hear a lot of stories, and there's still a lot of pain here. But just being here today and coming to the gathering is so powerful. So I really do believe that it takes a powerful individual and you have to be gifted to coordinate. So I want to thank Philip for his gifts of patience and kindness and just being able to listen, and everybody else that worked behind the scenes to pull this together. But my question I guess is for Michelle. And I too am a local president in Buffalo Narrows, Local 62, and we do have a lot of our community members that attended. Like Bobby said, we're cousins, and she's from Buffalo Narrows. So anyway, as we are aware, I was told yesterday, and I want to thank Dwayne for going on NBC and doing the interview and acknowledging that he was very disappointed in the minister not attending, or the invite to the party to attend and acknowledge our people. And they didn't attend, and I'd like to thank you for that, for acknowledging that, Dwayne, because people need to know that we aren't being acknowledged by the government. We're all aware that the funding at the federal level is now being distributed to the provinces in regards to health. And we always talk about self-government and what are we going to do? And, we have to recognize ourselves as a government. Well, if the Métis Nation doesn't recognize the support they have from their people that came here this weekend, then they're not going to recognize it. So what are they going to do? And how are they going to approach the federal government that is now going to be sending money over to the province for health? That's for us, our people here today. How are they going to use that as a tactic or a tool to negotiate on behalf of our people? Yes, we can say we don't need money, and we don't when we are at our community levels. But people are here today too for a reason. They've been hurt, they've been damaged, and our generations after generation. I was shocked, Michelle, when you said it's 7 generations that happened there in Ile-a-Crosse boarding school. Like, wow, really? No wonder. Like, this makes so much sense. But we all know that. We all feel it. We don't even have to speak it. Some of us don't know how to relate that to others. But what are we doing? How are we going to challenge the government to say, we're government, this is our people, and how are we going to support them and take them to that next level to have those fall events? Because they sound good, but they can't come without money. But we need bigger than that. These people have been waiting to settle for how long now? Since what? Last 20 years? I remember going to meetings and we're like, we can't ask for better. And the support is here. So what is the next step for the Métis? And how are they going to say, look, this is our plan and this is our guarantee, and people are going to get what is owed to them? Thank you.
Thanks, Marlene. Marlene always has the best questions and that take a little bit longer to answer. So I think going forward, we'll continue to work with the lawyers in negotiation. Hopefully the province will come to the table. The other issue around the transfer payments, the health transfer payments that come from the federal government to the province of Saskatchewan, that's something that we've been talking to the federal government about. If it comes to the province and it's not fairly distributed to Métis Nation, and I mean, there's two different things. Métis Nation has over 30,000 citizens that are registered. We have 80,000 people who self-declare in the province. So we have been talking to the federal government about those transfer payments, along with other things like infrastructure. For example, just on a side, now infrastructure gets a transfer payment to the province. The federal government is finally putting in some caveats to that, saying, look, you can't just fund all of these main highways. You have to start building roads in the north. You have to start building roads, and there's a number of things. Is there an Indigenous community close by? Those sorts of things. So we are putting pressure on the government on health. We do, however, have in the last budget, which just passed, there was a budget announcement for Indigenous health. And so we're negotiating that right now because the lion's share, most of the money was going to go straight to First Nations, and then the Inuit and Métis have to carve out the rest. So we're at the table right now trying to renegotiate that health cutout. And I think it was, what was it? It was, I think, around $100 million or something like that. It was quite a lot of money. So the argument is always, a lot of those health dollars are already spent outside of that 100 million. There's money already being spent under the Indian Act and under treaty. So anyway, it's a valid question. It's a good question, and we have to figure that out. In terms of the women, we've been talking with the Métis National Council of Women about putting on a conference. This is a absolutely great opportunity to talk to them about what kind of conference. And so we're going to talk to them about having a survivors conference for women and have a safe space to do that. So, there's a number of things in the fire, but I think the health piece is really, really an important question. And so we're working towards that. The other thing that I want to say, we talk about pressuring the federal government, the provincial government, but our plan is in April to do a side event at the United Nations to talk specifically about Ile-a-Crosse. So countries from all over the world and Indigenous people can come and see the injustice and the travesty of not having recognition and compensation. So we're not only going to take it to the province, we're taking it to the world. That this needs to be acknowledged. This needs to come to a stop. So I hope that kind of answers your questions.
Okay, I'm not going to cut off anybody here, but 11 o'clock was our panel, but we're going to continue. But I have to make a quick announcement here because I notice people are leaving. The box lunches are boxed. We're asking the elders first to go, please. Not to go, but to get their lunch. Sorry about my English. Sometimes it's all wrong. The flowers on the table. We're asking if you can make sure a female, the oldest female sitting at the table happens to be you, Missy Poo. And there's two men there with a bouquet. So we're asking the elders if they can take the flowers, but we have them outside. They're already packaged for you in plastic, so you won't go dripping your water home and you won't freeze. But the lunches are ready. If you want to go grab your lunch and maybe come back here, because it seems like the discussion wants to go on. And you know what's so beautiful? There are people outside there crying. They don't want to go home. That's beautiful. But if you guys are okay with that, Jordan and Michelle, or should we just take one more question?
Well, one more question, because there's nobody and I know Richard's been standing there for a while, so let's.
Okay, one more question.
Morgan Weiss.
Okay, two questions, sorry.
No, sorry.
Just good. First of all, I'd like to thank Residential School Committee, along with the Métis Nation, for putting up this gathering here. A lot of people see each other and know each other, and they remember they were in a residential school. And I hope that they continue to communicate with each other. And just a little thing about legacy. I think we have a grandson who's 9 years old, and all of a sudden he's always on a computer and stuff like that. He asked my wife, who was the prime minister at the time residential school started? And we gave him a few names. He said, no. So we finally said, John A. MacDonald. He said, yeah, he knew that. And the other thing he said that my wife said, why your hair's getting long? Maybe I'll take you to get a haircut. Why, you think you're in a residential school or what? He told us, so just reminds me of how our hair used to be cut. And the girls had all the same haircut when we were growing up and in a residential school. And the older girls, I was just a small 5-year-old that went into the residential school. They used to look after us. You know, the kinship was there. And then the final thing I'll say is we're going to go back to our communities. We're going to see a lot of our own people, children maybe living in where there's drugs and alcohol, and a lot of alcoholic drug addicts around in our community, even we say gangsters. What do we do? That's the question I ask. My way of doing it is I talk to people and I pray for them. Make sure that they don't break out of that cycle of addiction. Because, like one elder said, even a homeless man or a homeless person we see on the streets in Saskatoon, we don't know where they came from. Maybe they came from residential schools. Maybe they were physically, sexually abused. Maybe they were incarcerated. A lot of our residential school survivors were incarcerated because of residential school. My older brother was 17 years he spent in the correction center, right to BC. We can't forget those people. They suffered, and the authority, all of a sudden somebody comes and screams at them and trying to boss them around. Oh my, it just breaks. That's the way I was treated in residential school. You're not going to treat me like that anymore. And so this is something to think about. And the final thing is, I'm glad Michelle mentioned health, because a lot of us, particularly me, we don't have health coverages. A lot of us are in chronic condition, heart disease, diabetes, whatever, and we can't afford our medication. We got to say, well, this week, I'm not going to take my insulin. Next week, I'm not going to take my metformin for diabetic people. It costs too much. We can't afford it. So what do we do? And the final one is, you had a healing foundation when the First Nation negotiated their agreement. Maybe that's something we should think about, having a healing foundation where we can build centers, alcohol and drug centers. Maybe we can start counseling our people and visiting each other. The only one that's come and visit me is my daughter at home. She comes knocking, and they still say, who's there? But we don't even visit each other and talk to each other. Let's start communicating and sharing our stories and crying together if we have to, whatever. Let's start healing, that healing process will start. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Richard?
Good morning. I just want to express my gratitude and my I feel so good to be standing here. Before I could never, I was just a very shy person. But when I had alcohol in me, it was gone. I don't need alcohol now. I still am who I am. Since I quit alcohol and substance abuse, and I quit being mean to myself, I guess, angry. I'm not angry anymore. I'm happy to see people. I just want to say thank you to everybody that came here. And I still feel like this whole area is full, even though it looks empty. But I feel spirits, good spirits in here. And I thank the elders here. And I'm sorry I had to go. But I shared just a minute, maybe a few minutes with this guy, and it's good. It's wonderful. And I was in a hurry, and I shut off my truck, and I guess I left the light on, and I had a problem with I couldn't find booster cables, and I want to thank my buddy, my friend, for helping me. And besides that, I love you guys, and I carry on and don't step back. Go full throttle, but do it with pride. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Richard. I think there's Margaret.
I just want to say, because we're losing people are leaving, words to part with. Please reach out if you're at home and feeling lonely. But as he just mentioned, kami mok. Keep going, be strong, reach out to each other. I know a whole bunch of you exchanged phone numbers and all that. Reach out, and we're also, like I said, that's so important. And if the elders are sitting here hungry, grab your box lunch or get somebody from your table to grab you a lunch. Merci.
Okay, Margaret. Then you got to go catch your plane, woman.
Good morning, everybody. So appreciated you guys all make it. This is what the board has been fighting for. I want to say one thing. I'm not going to preach or I'm not going to talk long. The first thing we must do, a separation from First Nation to Métis, it shouldn't be like that. First thing is unity. That's what we need to work on together. Together to fight, together to get along. We're no different from Métis or Treaty. We're all the same. I have brothers that are Treaty, that live on a reserve, sisters. I can't discourage them from my life because they're my brothers. Now, the first thing we have to all work on is unity. Unity together. So please, let's work together. Let's be a brother and a sister to each other. And that's the only way. You know, when we have a disease, we fight that disease. We want to get cured. We want to get better. And we fight for our brothers and sisters, our relatives that have disease. We're fighters. We don't give up. Our parents never gave up on us, teaching the cultural life we have today, our grandparents. I continue that generation into my life, and I teach my children and grandchildren, which I appreciate that. And for each and every one of you sitting in here, have a safe trip back and discuss with your friends. And like they said, the panel works a lot harder than me. They work for you to see what they're doing. And I hope we can gather again like this, whether where we can all unite again. Maybe it'd be good if it's in the summertime, we can all live in a tent where we can pitch, where we can make campfires and talk and feed each other and share each other. So that's the best I could think of. And this will be a discussion on a table for our next meeting or whatever. And pray for us that we all have a safe trip. in and out of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be flying out. So thank you so much for listening to me. I'm no better than you. I'm equal as you, no matter what. So don't think anybody is different or better. We are the same, the same. Unity, don't forget that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I just want to take a moment to thank Dwayne and Maureen, our MCs, to our staff who you probably saw popping in and out everywhere and who you maybe have talked to on the phone to get you here or to get you home or, you know, taking care of you throughout this weekend. A big thank you to Philip DeRocher and the Survivors Committee for all their hard work. Thank you to the Métis Nation, Saskatchewan, President Glenn McCallum, to our Vice President here who, and I can attest to this, I'm her advisor. She was elected and when she started, she brought me in to do this work, and I can tell you, and this is like me just as Jordan, not as she's hired me to say this, but every single room that we're in, any person of influence, whether it's ministers or, you know, communities, wherever we go, this is the number one thing that this woman talks about. So know that, you know, she has your back and is always trying to make things happen. So thank you, Michelle, for everything you do. I don't know if people know enough of that. To our youth panel, you guys are amazing. But the biggest thank you is to all of your survivors and your support people, your family for getting you here safely and for getting you home safely. We really, really honor you and appreciate your feedback, all of your words. And man, we have learned so much in these few days and I felt so much love. This has been more than we could have ever asked for. So hi, Knaskumtin, Masi Cho, thank you so much. And if I can have an elder up here to close us off with a good prayer and some good words. I'm looking at you there, Chuck. Yeah. I'll send my dad Buckley over here.
Once again, I would like to humbly ask each and every one of you to put your hearts and your minds together and make them as one. And remember the ones that have gone on ahead of us, the ones not yet born. Some of them have been very, very tragic in the way that they have gone into the spirit world. And we are the ones that are going to change it, these young ones that sit here. They're already moving forward, having a different way of looking at life. So for that, I am very, very happy, and I thank you so much. My hands go up to you, all of you. The elder people that are here are the ones that will guide you, give you that guidance of how you can move forward. So, amin apiago nohta. Siwat suuna naskuhtin. Umaga mamo piako apimnan. Yaimo tamako magigo kagipi. Nayah tamakuma. Tunaiguan megi kusagwak. Ewe pagit na makiguan ma. Pihtawawag tan sa guy speaks with sa guy sinuwak. Hagiam pit sa huging tatos kahagan nakniwayaga gyok tapihetsik. Lizange, little angels, ogi sigwak. Kahti oyagunek. Tapi situs kagoyakik. Tapi natamagoyakik igwan ma. Kigoyga sichi higoya. Kanatse henan. Kiam tamato yakakta. Takasina makigunan. Kasichi higoya. I want to thank you for giving us one more day to be able to walk upon sacred Mother Earth in this fashion. And I want to humbly ask you to send your helpers, the ones we know as the grandmothers and grandfathers, the angels, all the ones that have gone on ahead of us, the ones not yet born, and all our ancestors to walk with us and protect all our relatives here as they journey home so that nothing adverse will hit them as they lighten their load coming here and letting that go in a good way. And I humbly ask you, grandmothers and grandfathers, take that away. Put it somewhere where it will never, ever hurt anybody from here on in. Thank you so much. I hear you.
Okay, with that,
Masi Cho. Good morning. Salot in Dlanot once again. Doing Zinnig Deniati podcast or with Anadlina Tenisem Beya se Shanatin Delamati Gathering Residential School Survivors. John Ashna, I think Taylor's tours in Sahel. Just a couple quick questions here and then Balaulia doing Zinnig Emil Adlanita.
Nazo.
Nabarjan Leota weekend that's in there.
It's and a shangas in 1,000 that's only.
Then it up in Neoni Huntarest, then it low, it's a good time.
The last 50 years on that lead only. And Sadani to Shazana he did near this go who on there.
Zinik Elant on the side, could there a Métis Nation of Saskatchewan ten at Adan Youndit I school 9 there, but there no Banuni on at the Ottawa and who Delu Teno Habak and not the only Métis Nation.
And it's said that new tell Yalan Tilan, some Pada could do whom said that new. Yeru another was that lab. Ottawa, Toronto.
Toronto, okay. Yeah. Altila huni ziondi, but Tlanti seek and out there air course out there na ya tide so lamashi who lake and out there or just na ya tide huto.
Yeah, two the burial grounds at all who hunti done at Hughes a quay. Dole who he done at here. Hell were interlocutor. The Bella Hills he had the Nusendi and
Well, te no ko niona during its urtile der asne the committee the then it's sines and doing zinega says Salyan. I know you gotta get going. That's uncool. Everything you gotta do, playing your hint. Or maybe another day, but United at Linosa, Emil Massin Aniston.
Until I started the high kilos.
Torlu, and it's a phone as clear.
There's a phone number at the a long do is.
Yeah. Otlabaraya Tides on as well.
What?
Yeah. Then that'll be a lot of heavy stuff here. Call it the as the heat dele, it's very good to see nears and doing it again. Alrighty, salot in doing zinike masina who soon I know how long tadul easy all weekend John Deniati podcast and all our Cree friends, everybody Métis that got to join us here. I hope you got some information out of the Métis gathering here, the survivors of Ile-a-Crosse Residential School. If you took something away, use it, pass it on, and that's how we're going to be able to move forward. And I want to thank the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan for having me here. And then, of course, the elders, the people, they represent a lot of support they have put into it. This work is nonstop for them. So thank you, Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. And thank you, everybody at home. We'll see you all again at the next event, wherever it may be. Ho Masi Cho na ho sinta salutina.
Masi Cho.
Masi.